104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
Short-lived. There will be.
But what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, Xi's on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
These tariffs. The market is on track right now for its worst weekly performance since March of 2020. How do you continue to be an advocate for these tariffs, given the sell-off we're seeing, given that I have had every source on our show this morning say that these tariffs will be causing a recession in the United States?
They don't know that yet. They don't know how long the tariff's going to be on. We've never done this before. We've never taken on the entire globe. Usually it's done in trade agreements with specific countries, such as NAFTA, which was Canada and Mexico, or a European Union situation. This is unique, over 60 countries. Now, there's two aspects to these tariffs. Number one is reciprocality against tariffs from one country to another based on products and services that are specific. So if you're charging a 20% tariff in India, it's going to be reciprocated in the United States. And those go away pretty quickly. That actually leads to fair trade. The more complex aspect of these negotiations are around the idea of trade imbalances. And so when you put on tariffs to try and fix trade imbalance, it's difficult because the largest economy on earth is the United States. So really you're starting a behemoth negotiation, and it's happening in every country. You highlighted Canada, but you might as well talk about Britain or even Switzerland, where I am right now, where they have over 30% tariffs imposed 48 hours ago. And so you can assume that behind the scenes are two spheres of negotiations. One is, let's try and reduce the imbalance of trade by buying more stuff from the United States. That's one signal. And the other, which is very easy to fix, is simply remove all tariffs. If you're going to have reciprocal tariffs at 20%, 30%, 40%, just get rid of them, bring them down to zero.
But Kevin, as of this morning, with a 34% retaliatory tariff from China to the United States, we are not getting closer to free trade. We are just getting further into a trade war.
No, China's a whole different story. This isn't about trade war with China. This is about leveling the playing field on a wide range of issues, including IP law, access to business, access to courts, being compliant with U.S. regulations on securities. There is a laundry list of grievances with China that have been around since they joined the WTO, and none of the administrations previously have ever dealt with China.
So why are tariffs the right way?
Dealt with for the first time. So this has nothing to do with just tariffs. I mean, right now I can't litigate.
That's the tool that the administration is using. Why are tariffs the correct tool if, to your point, these have nothing to do with tariffs?
What tool do you suggest they do when nothing else has worked?
I'm not the president. It's not my job.
Well, exactly. So let him do his work. China's different than all the other countries.
But it's not
China
working,
has to be dealt
right?
with. Look, I'm having lots of problems with China, as are millions of other companies in the United States that try to do business there. They do not play by the rules. They're going to have to start doing it pretty soon. That's a different conversation. You want to talk about the markets correcting? Yes, they are. By the way, markets correct every 18 months up to 20%. You're watching it happen right now. It's not pleasant. You can't blame just the tariffs for this. These have been very expensive markets now for almost 18 months. Now they're having a correction. I think what matters is this a recession signal, yes or no? And how long will these tariffs be on? I would say 50% of these tariffs across these 60 countries will be negotiated pretty quickly, including the Canadian situation you made details on. Canada's different because they're in the middle of an election. Carney's not an elected official. He has no mandate from the Canadian people. He's just an interim prime minister when they threw out Justin Trudeau a few weeks ago. He's got to get elected first, so he's going to say anything he possibly can to try and distract Canadian voters from the fact that his party bankrupt the country. 25% of Canadians live in poverty. They have had no GDP growth for 10 years. There's no investment capital in Canada anymore, and the dollar's lost 41% of its value. Canadians can't go to the United States because they can't afford it under Carney's leadership in his party. So those are different issues too. There's a lot of things going on at the same time.
A lot of things that economists tell me are not fixable via tariffs, but I am curious from your perspective then, why do you think that we are moving towards a negotiation where these tariffs are not going to be as bad as they seem right now, at least for financial markets? What is it that gives you confidence that there is going to be a negotiation reached?
Because there's a good reason to do it. I mean, you got to distinguish the noise versus the signal. I've said this countless times about Trump. Let's take the Canadian situation, which we've been talking about. If you combine those economies, I'm not saying buying the country, but if you combine the economies, which seems impossible to do given the rhetoric and what's going on right now, but the truth is, the signal is it would be much stronger against China if there were no tariffs between Canada and the United States and they had a common currency and they protected the northern border, not the 49th parallel. Now, the Canadians know that's worth it because 75% of their output has been sold to the United States for over 120 years. 17 states call Canada the #1 trading partner. 28 states, in addition to those 17, #2 trading partner is Canada. So it'd be economic suicide not to work this out. The obvious answer is to remove all tariffs, and that will happen, my guess is, right after the election when the Canadians make their choice about who they want to lead them. That person will fly to Washington immediately and start negotiations, which I would call NAFTA 3. But right now, that's not happening because Carney's trying to use this whole Trump issue as fulcrum to try and distract Canadians away from the facts that he wiped out the country. Maybe he'll get elected, maybe he won't. Nobody knows right now. But nothing's going to happen on the Canadian situation until the election's over in just over 5 weeks.
So let's talk.
The whole idea of today's conversation was just to get to a reciprocal playing field, a even playing field.
So, Mr. O'Leary, what if there was a company called WeatherTech? You know, and they produce really nice mats for their car.
I have them in my F-150.
And they woke up one day and they looked on Alibaba and they saw that their products were being sold on Alibaba. And they looked at their shipping, and they never had done any business with Alibaba. And they looked just like the mats that they produced in Illinois, and they even had their name on it, right? What could they do to stop this theft of their product? And they got nothing for it. What would be their recourse right now?
There is nothing they can do. You have just told the story of 1 million small businesses in America over the last 20 years. They innovate, they create, they're entrepreneurs, they prove their product in the American consumer market at around 5 million in sales. They're knocked off. By whom? China. Very often, the same plants that ran the molds under a relationship they had with the company. A lot of companies went to China 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and put their molds there, and during the day, the company would run the WeatherTech mat, in this example, here theoretically, and then at night, they'd run the knockoff mat. And they would bring it into the market, and let me guess, 30% off retail of WeatherTech. And I've seen this happen countless times. And in some cases where the company's very small, they go out of business. And nobody hears that tree falling in the forest. It happens thousands of times. There's such an immense opportunity here to just enforce existing laws, but really, at the end of the day, the reason that behemoth company couldn't do anything about it, they have no access to the Chinese courts. They can't resolve the complaint through litigation, as we do here. So my recommendation is, look, if you're a Chinese company and you want to use our courts to litigate your complaint, sorry. Not until you open yours. We'd love to work with you, but unless it's a reciprocal play, the whole idea of today's conversation was just to get to a reciprocal playing field, an even playing field. American companies have always been very competitive anywhere on earth when given a chance on a transparent and competitive playing field. That's not the case in China. I mean, we're all saying the same thing here. It's got to get fixed. And finally, here we are, with tariffs being the excuse, but now I think she has to come to the table, and I hope it happens. And I'd like to see tomorrow morning 400% tariffs.
More people inventing useful things, like Mr. Bobby Ashimura, who wins our Max Headroom Product of the Month award for coming up with a little attachment you plug into your TV, and it warns you that the commercial break is coming by automatically switching off your set for 5 seconds. And here to demonstrate it for us is Mr. Ashimura himself.